welcome everyone, and thank you for taking some time out of your busy schedules to share some time and your expertise with us as we talk about the Van Aken District public realm stakeholder input. City Council and I consider the continuing development and improvement of the Van Aken district transit area as a very high priority for us as a city and the community. And we look forward to adding additional amenities and better connecting the Van Aken district along with the district south area, our transit and adjacent neighborhoods. The focus of this phase is on design development, and this will be where you will be able to share your preferences and ideas. So again, we thank you for joining us tonight, and we look forward to working together as we continue to make additional improvements and development in the Van Aken district. So with that, I will hand it back to Joyce and Kara.
So I'm Kara Hamley O'Donnell. I'm the principal planner and the project manager for this. And Joyce Braverman is our planning director and is on the call as well.
I'm Cullen Mavis. I'm with MKSK. I'm a landscape architect and urban planner. We are the prime for the project, and we're also overseeing the public engagement portion of the project. Also with me is Susie Maurer. You want to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. I am Susie Maurer. I'm a landscape architect with MKSK. And I just wanted to say this is a really fun project for me to be designing on, as I frequent that area practically almost every day. So I'm glad to be here and have a part in it.
Colin, would you mind stopping the share of the screen just while we do the introductions and come
Absolutely.
back to the each other? Thank you.
And I also wanted to introduce, so we have a sub-consultant team involved on the project as well. Osborne is serving as a civil engineer. We have KS Associates for survey services. We have and Lawhorn Associates for environmental. And we do have one member from the Osborne team here tonight. So Joe, if you want to do a quick introduction of yourself as well.
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. My name is Joe Gornt. I'm with Osborne Engineering. Like Colin said, we're the engineers on the project. And for this one, I am the project manager. So I agree with Susie, this is going to be a fun project to do.
So just a little bit of background on the project. So as everyone is familiar with the area, the project boundary is kind of a unique boundary outline that follows Tuttle Road and also the busway down to Chagrin Boulevard. So it's an area that encompasses what is planned to be a future plaza space and another anchor within the district, as well as some surrounding improvements to help it tie together both in character and also functionally to the rest of the district and the existing neighborhoods and developments around it.
So back in 2020, right at the beginning, in the middle of the pandemic, we learned pretty quickly how to use Zoom and coordinate to come up with a plan to address that sort of as the precursor to what we're looking at today. And at that time, we came up with the idea of looking at sort of where the future development was going to be, which is off to the sort of sides with the sort of pinkish cast to it. And then this area was divided into 7 different areas. As we moved through with the project, we also worked very closely. Our team consisted of city employees, our consultant, as well as the owners of the Van Aken shopping area, RMS, and then also RTA, of course, is a critical component of that whole area. So we really worked as a team to narrow down what we wanted to happen. And for this project, in effect, what we're looking at is the areas that are labeled as 1, 2, 3, and 4. possibly 5, but mostly those core areas in the middle. And then I'm gonna pass it off to Joyce to talk a little bit about the RTA project that's separate from this, but obviously very related to it.
So we did want to show you what's going on with the RTA Comfort Station. They are in final construction drawings, and that is to add a station building with a restroom at the end of the tracks right there, and where it says Comfort Station is green. So we wanted to let you know that that project is also going on. The next slides will show you just a view of what it looks like. And so you can see Tuttle Road on the right-hand side of the slide, and then the busway. And this is a nighttime view, but this shows how it fits into the context. Go ahead. And then this is the end that would face Tuttle Road that you would see if you were walking down the street. And then finally, this is what it looks like from the busway. RTA, as we said, are in their final construction drawings and hope to bid this by early next year, and perhaps start as early as March or April of next year, the construction. And then the public realm construction would follow right after. So just wanted to let you know that that's going on and give you a visual of what that will look like. Oh, and this is their furniture, just to show where you see blue, that's the both the shelters with benches in it. Red is trash cans, and they do have green, which is bike parking. And the reason we're showing you this is we will talk about bike parking on our plaza. So want to show you what's happening across the street.
And then I'm just going to give you a little bit of background. This is a $1.8 million project. Most of that is with NOACA Transportation Alternatives, which focuses on transportation alternatives that aren't a car, such as pedestrians, cyclists, and transit riders. And that money is secured and ready to go. And then our timeline, as Joyce started to sort of allude to, is that we're working on design and engineering for about the next year. And then in late next year and into early 2024, we'll be doing construction and bidding. And then construction will take place from the spring of 24 to the spring of 2025. And I'm going to pass it back over to MKSK to get us going on the fun part.
Right. Right. So just to give a quick kind of overall view of what we started with and what were some of the goals of the project as we developed the space. So obviously this is a major hub within the district, tying together the rail and busway and pedestrian traffic. So connectivity was a major theme of kind of how we started to lay out the space and start to organize it around the desire lines that people have moving through the space, and creating a multimodal district hub that really becomes the heart of that. Designing for comfort. So making sure shade was a big theme we heard in some of our initial meetings. There isn't a lot of shade and areas of respite there today. So obviously the comfort station is going to start to help with that, but also just providing a little bit more area for people to rest between different transit stops, or just take a seat if you're visiting the district and enjoy a nice quiet seat in the plaza. Also looking at beauty, so looking at the sculptural aspects of what could happen in this space, also planting material, really looking at the character of the space and trying to create another unique feature within the district, which is so well known for. We're also working alongside an artist team that is going to be designing an installation for the space. So tying that together in the design. And finally, sustainability, looking at best management practices within this area, looking at native plantings, looking at how water is flowing through the site, and keeping that in mind throughout the design process. So as we mentioned, kind of project area on that first slide, and some of the slides that Kara went through, it includes the length of the busway. This is primarily for some circulation and movement changes that we're proposing within the parking along the busway. And then the area right at the end of the comfort station and across the street for where we're proposing plaza improvements, and then improvements to tie it into the larger district and create some safe crosswalks and crossing connections along Tuttle and Chagrin Boulevard. So you can see here in aerial, and then we've also shown it within the design plan. So as we mentioned, connectivity was a big theme for us, trying to figure out how this plaza and space could best function. We looked at various modes and kind of circulation routes that are happening in and around the space, whether it be the bus and rail circulation, so the bus lane with the multiple routes that are coming in and parking along the comfort station, the rail line, and how people are disembarking and moving through the space, getting to their cars or moving through to the district, how vehicles are entering the space. This was of particular interest to us also from a wayfinding and branding. So trying to create moments that will help ground this area of the district, similar to ways that the hubs at the northern end have done. And also looking at the circulation as it exists today within the parking lot and trying to make some improvements to that. And finally, pedestrian flows. So you can see here, there's a number of crosswalks that exist today, desire lines for pedestrians moving through the space, but also as we were in discussions with the surrounding owners and with the city, this is a major desire line cut through right adjacent to the Walgreens. And so being cognizant of that and trying to create that connection as well. And we're also wanted to make sure that the balance was right for the space. So taking a look at the major public spaces throughout the district and creating a space that balances those, but doesn't necessarily draw away from those. So each of these spaces has kind of its own unique character and function. And similarly, this one down here is really more tied to the transit hub and the circulation aspects of the district. And we're trying to draw that into the design and make it function from that perspective as well. So as we have been moving through this process, we've been having a lot of discussions and trying to figure out what's the framework, how do we lay out the space. And as we mentioned, that major pedestrian connection to the Sussex neighborhood and across Chagrin is a strong desire line and cut through. So we wanted to provide an ease of movement through the space along that corridor in particular. That kind of set up our boundary as we started to try and figure out what's the best scale for this space, how will it function. We really see it as a kind of quieter plaza as compared to the northern two. This is a space where people will be waiting between route stops or waiting for a bus, perhaps waiting to meet someone who's using one of the adjacent shops. And so trying to size it appropriately for that. And then as we were doing that, also starting to look at maximizing the efficiency of the parking that's already there and switching this, what is today a two-way parking area into a one-way that gets a little more space, and changing it to the angled parking so that we can have a few more parking spaces in that area as well. And then also looking at, again, all of those other cross connections that are happening throughout the district. And so here you can see as it stands today, the site plan for the area, also how it kind of ties in with the other spaces throughout and along Tuttle Road. And you can see that kind of long connection right here, right next to Walgreens coming up and into the space. Zoom into a little bit closer view so you can see some of that framework playing out in the design. So we're showing a generous crosswalk that brings people from that primary crossing point into the plaza. We also studied kind of paths and routes and trying to make a space that is comfortable, that creates enough shade and has enough areas for seating, and different types of places to have different vantage points, but also not blocking any of those primary routes that people are trying to take. You can also see right here that driveway that's now been switched to a one-way with the protection areas at the end right next to the crosswalk, so creating a protection along that side as well. You can see over here our kind of concept diagram of how this plaza is functioning, and tying into the idea of having the artist piece as a primary component of the space. So we're designing the framework for the space itself, and the artists are designing the element that is going to be proposed for this space. So we're keeping this area in particular flexible so that they can be seamlessly melded together and not be an afterthought in terms of the space as it's designed. So going through a few more of the elements that we have here, we do have this other flanking plaza space that comes across the busway and terminates the end of the RTA comfort station. So the primary disembarking route would be right here and coming across and either going to this crosswalk or heading north or coming into the plaza itself. Trying to really expand the tree canopy that is available in this area, really starting to break down that heavily paved character that it has today and start to give it some more shade. Looking at options for wayfinding and where those should be. That's early in the process, but starting to think about that so that people know where to go. Making really safe, generous crossings that buses will be cognizant of everyone crossing here, that we're suggesting tabled so that it creates a very prioritized pedestrian experience. And it also really highlights the primary route as well and gets you in the most direct way onto a bus route or rail stop up to the northern part of the district. You can see we have a number of planters to help to bring down the scale of the plaza and bring it down to a pedestrian scale. It's curvilinear for ease of movement throughout the space with lush understory plantings. And we have some specialty paving, which you'll see an example of trying to pull in some of the character of the iconic paving up in the northern section, but give it its own flavor and really make it a little bit more of a gradient here. And finally, as was mentioned earlier, the bike racks tying into that multimodal and connective design goals. So trying to make sure that everyone has an option here within this plaza. So some of the design elements that we're proposing for this space include seating, specialty pavers, shade trees, and understory planting. We're drawing inspiration and association to the comfort station across the street. So trying to bring in some wood elements into the benches, also creating areas that are a little bit more comfortable, not quite so cold to sit on. The concrete pavers are just a nice material. It gives it a distinction, a feeling of it being a special plaza in space. And as I've mentioned a couple of times now, the shade trees are really important to the comfort level in this plaza and making sure that it's a nice place to be throughout the seasons. Some of the other proposed site elements and also ones that will be in close proximity. So we're proposing to keep the same lighting that exists within the district, keep that consistent character, tie everything together. Suggestions for bollards at those crossings so that we can provide wide crossings that are easy to negotiate, but also still keep cars where they need to be and people safe from vehicular zones. And then bike racks as a kind of the standard for the district itself, and then the RTA's fixtures that will be across the street. So you can see that here, the benches and the trash can that's shown in the previous plan. And as I alluded to that, the specialty paving that's happening up in the center of the district, we want to keep that area special. That is iconic. So the proposal here is to use a kind of broken down version of it, make it into more of a gradient form, have a sense of energy as you move through the space. So it ties together, but keeps this area kind of the central socializing space and its identity that way. Some other elements that we're considering or planning for in this space so that it can be flexible, mobility elements. So either bike stations for bike shares that may be located in the future in this area. Also wayfinding signage that may be associated with RTA. So some other elements that we're considering as we're moving forward. And we're very much keeping in mind kind of those crossings where they do happen, how to best approach and keep people safe and still allow for movement and function of the buses and the vehicles. So I mentioned the tabled crossing that we're suggesting across the busway. You can see an example of that here and here, where the pedestrian way stays at the same level and it's actually the road comes up to meet it. This helps with helping vehicles to slow down at crosswalks, especially in mid-blocks. Also some suggestions of potentially having some thermoplastic or colorful treatments to the crosswalks, really eye-catching or iconic elements that can be added at any of the crossings as they exist, but really tend to be used more for gateways. And then, so again, some other things that are being looked at and considered are some of the comfort and beauty elements. So we'll be working in tandem with the artists to make sure that anything that is proposed ties in well with their proposal for the site, but also starting to look at some other elements that could be brought in. So you can see there's some urban swings or musical elements or some urban play elements as well. And so, sure, go ahead.
Thanks, Colin. And we, this is a preliminary design that was vetted just last night by our public art task force. The artists that were chosen through our public art task force several months ago is a group called Kravanek and Bro, and they came up with multiple general sort of schematic ideas for the artwork, which last night our public art task force unanimously preferred this concept. And so throughout the process in the last couple months and going forward, MKSK and Kravanek and Bro will continue to work together, as Colin noted, to make sure that these are seamlessly integrated into the design and that this can be a real anchor in that public area there. So we are excited about it. And I think they've thus far, MKSK and Kravanek and Bro have been really a great partnership and their creativity together. We're really looking forward to see what becomes of this. I'll hand it back to you, Colin.
So this is exactly that kind of little target that we had on our previous diagram. This is the placeholder that we were referencing. So creating a space for something vibrant and exciting and that creates another element that helps people understand that when they've arrived at the district and creates kind of a branding moment as well. So some of the other kind of functional aspects of the space. So as we are moving through the design, you can see here where it's falling within the existing kind of parking layout. We mentioned we've able to increase the efficiency of this parking area out here, and by doing so, we've added 11 spaces in total. We were taking away 10, so we've actually gained the space from the area that's still available. Obviously, there are spaces in here that have been removed as well, but that was always part of the plan for the plaza. And so with that, I just want to kind of kick it off into discussion with a couple of topics. So generally, we'd like to hear thoughts and your impressions of things regarding functionality of the space? Do we have the desire lines understood correctly? Are there ones we're missing? How do you see the space functioning? How do you see people moving through it? Would love to hear your thoughts on safety, the scale of the plaza. How does that feel? How do you see people using it? How is the gateway function of it coming together? And also, what else would you like to see?